If your drawings look muddy, flat, or fake, you're not bad at color, but you are misreading it. In this video, I'll prove that you don't need a huge set of pencils to really be able to control your temperature and intensity, and I'll do that by drawing this entire rose with just 2 colors. This is called the Zorn Palette, traditionally used by oil painters. Just red, yellow ochre, plus a black and a white. That's it. Before I even think about matching color, I start by mapping in my values with just 1 pencil. Working this way forces me to study the form and shadows first, instead of hiding mistakes with more color. When you jump into color too early, you end up layering pencil after pencil, trying to create the perfect match. But early on, you don't actually have anything to compare that color to yet. So you're not really matching, you're guessing. And when you don't see color relationships clearly, one of 2 things usually happens. Your shadows either start to feel muddy because you're creating random neutrals through guesswork, or you swing the other direction and avoid neutrals completely. Now everything feels loud and oversaturated, even fake. So you reach for another pencil to fix it, and then another. And the more you try to solve these problems with color, the worse it gets. At some point, you're staring at your piece thinking, ugh, I should have stopped earlier. You feel frustrated, maybe even embarrassed. Trust me, I know your pain, I've been there too. You might begin to blame your technique or your supplies, and you start binging tutorials, ordering more pencils, and convincing yourself that there must be some magic combination that you just haven't found yet. But here's the thing, if your work looks muddy, fake, or flat, the problem isn't your blending or supplies, it's that you're trying to read color in isolation. Realism isn't achieved by perfectly matching 1 red on 1 tiny section of 1 petal. It comes from understanding how that red relates to what's next to it. Is it warmer than the shadow behind it? Is it more intense than the petal above? Is it darker than the background? That's where depth, dimension, and realism comes from. And this is where a huge set of pencils can actually make things worse. When you have 100 color options, it's easy to assume that there must be the perfect match in that pencil set somewhere. So you begin shopping your set. You grab for the color that's the closest, but you don't necessarily adjust or analyze it. You don't ask how it behaves in relation to the surrounding colors. And when you stack a bunch of these close enough choices without carefully mixing and adjusting, you end up with a hot mess. Before I refine my colors with more layers, I'm blending this first pass with solvent. Blending at this stage helps me work the pigment into the tooth of the paper without burnishing, which keeps the surface open for more adjustments later. Remember that this type of blending doesn't fix bad color decisions or sloppy technique, but it does allow me to see the color decisions that I've already made more accurately.
Layering colored pencil to get that really polished sheen takes time, so this second pass moves slower. But honestly, I kind of love that because when you slow down like this, you can actually see the exact ratio of each individual pencil that makes up your new color. When you mix paint on a palette, you're mixing it away from your drawing. But when you work with colored pencil, you're layering and adjusting right on the paper. So you can clearly see the relationships between your new color and everything around it. And that is really going to train your eyes to see and understand color accurately. The leaves ended up being my very favorite part of this piece. I have typically used this palette for portraits, and it is amazing for mixing up a variety of skin tones. And the colors in the rose are not that different from the colors you might find in a portrait, so that ended up working just fine. But the leaves are very different, and I was genuinely amazed that I could mix up convincing greens with this limited palette of yellow ochre, black, red, and white. We all know that green is created by mixing yellow and blue, but in this palette, I only have one of those ingredients, and my yellow isn't even a bright primary yellow. It's yellow ochre, which is muted. So how do these leaves end up reading as green? It's because I am focusing on relationships. The colors I'm mixing don't match my reference exactly, but accurate values are far more important than exact color matches. When I drew these birds using all of my green supplies, I obviously wasn't matching the color of every feather perfectly. In fact, they're not even close. But because the values and value relationships are correct, these birds still read accurately. And that's exactly what's happening here in the rose. First, I focus on value and make sure those relationships are solid, and then I look at temperature. These leaves need to feel cooler than the rose, so I reduce the red and lean more heavily on black and yellow ochre. And because that mixture is sitting next to these warm, vibrant reds, our eyes interpret it as green. Not because it's the correct green in isolation, but because the relationships are correct. In this pepper drawing on the left, I also mixed a full range of greens without using a single green pencil. For that piece, every color was created using just the 3 primaries, red, yellow, and blue. Practicing with limited palettes like this one is one of the fastest ways to train your eye to see color relationships more clearly. If you'd like to try this for yourself, I've created a free 3-pencil magic project guide that walks you through the exercise step by step. You can download this using the link in the video description. Let's take a step back here and look at the process for this rose as a whole, because none of it is random. Each step is designed to make the next decision more easily and more confidently. First, I began with a sketch and I mapped in my values. Next, I laid in my first color impressions with the limited palette. During this phase, I'm not trying to finish anything. I'm simply putting down enough pigment to establish the relationships, making sure there's enough material so that I can build with solvent later. Finally, I move into the refinement stage. This is where I slow down and really strengthen the relationships within the piece as I build up that polished colored pencil finish. During phase 2 and 3, I am seeing color very differently. And this shift in seeing color is so powerful because realism in art doesn't actually come from matching a color perfectly. It comes from understanding relationships and using them strategically. In addition to changing the way that you see color, there are tons of other benefits from limited palette studies. The one that I want to discuss next is the built-in color harmony. Because every color in this drawing comes from the same 4 ingredients, red, yellow ochre, black, and white, every mixture contains the same DNA and creates a cohesion across the entire piece. There are also some mental benefits to working this way. When artists work with huge pencil sets, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the perfect color must exist somewhere in the box. So we keep hunting for it and second guessing every decision. A limited palette will interrupt that cycle. Instead of searching for perfection, you start observing, adjusting, and responding to the drawing in front of you. And that shift can quiet a lot of perfectionism that pops up for all of us. As you work on these pieces, your confidence begins to grow. When you successfully create a wide range of colors from just a few pencils, you start to realize that the power isn't in the supplies. It's in your understanding of how the colors interact. Now, even after listing out all of these benefits, I can hear you saying, well, that's great for you, Lana. You can draw and you've been drawing forever, but I don't think that I can do this. I want to show you a few examples from artists inside the Color Lab who explored this same limited palette. This first piece is Shannon's Pumpkin. It was her first time working with the Zorn palette, and she used it to really study temperature and intensity. The result is a beautifully harmonious drawing with just 4 pencils. But she didn't stop there. She worked her way up to this master study from John Singer Sargent, where she mixed a full range of skin tones and started developing a really expressive personal style. This drawing is by Betsy, who just started with colored pencils, and she was still able to create the illusion of green simply by studying the color relationships in this piece. June took on another master study of Anders Zorn himself, the artist that this palette is named after. She explored the intensity in the jacket and balanced it with softer skin tones and a muted background, creating a really strong sense of depth. And finally, we'll look at these bananas by Wanda. Before joining the Color Lab, she mostly drew animals and had never used this palette before. But look at the range of colors she was able to mix here, including that beautiful violet in the background. And the volume that she was able to achieve in these bananas is sublime. The overwhelming message that I hear from students after they try this exercise is, I can't believe how good this looks. I didn't know that I could draw this well, and I just can't believe I did this with only 4 pencils. Once you start focusing on relationships instead of perfect matches, color suddenly starts making a lot more sense. Now, in this video, we focused a lot on different kinds of relationships, temperature, intensity, and harmony. But value relationships are really important too if you want your drawings to feel really convincing. In this next video, I dive into something that almost no one talks about: how to actually use shadows effectively through every stage of your drawing. So if you want to learn how to make your drawings look more dimensional and believable, check out this video next.